Tick, tick, tick. Each sweep of Big Tech's clock enhances corporate power, but his hands also sweep away more of our civil rights. At first, each new surge of artificial intelligence and robotic technologies can seem perfectly benign, even playful. Take Spot, the robotic four-legged doggy that actually has no spots, no endearing puppy eyes, can't bark, has no tail to wag, and is very undoggy. In fact, this electronic critter is rather creepily nightmarish, but it's marketed by cute videos, including one of Spot mixing margaritas. Admit it, that beats training your real dog to bring your slippers to you. But you can't just adopt a Spot at your local animal shelter. Each artificial canine, manufactured by Boston Dynamics, which is owned by Korean auto giant Hyundai Motor Company, sells for about $75,000. So who's buying them? Mainly such big corporate outfits as oil refineries, mining operations, and electric utilities that want an unblinking eye to monitor and record workers, visitors, protesters, and all others who approach their facilities. Just one more layer of our cycloptic surveillance society. But the point at which Spot loses all cuteness and turns into a menacing beast of authoritarianism is when it's turned into a police dog. There's been quite a public backlash, for example, against the Honolulu Police Department for deploying one of their robotic canines in a tent city for homeless people. In addition to outrage at the obvious class bias in sicking Spot on the homeless, the public outcry grew hotter when it was revealed that the police had used federal pandemic relief funds to buy their Spot. Corporate and government officials assure us that this latest tech marvel won't be used to spy on innocent people, be weaponized, or otherwise bite us on the butt. Trust us, they say. This is Jim Hightower saying no. The Hightower Radio Lowdown is brought to you by the Lowdown Happy Hour, live streamed from the Chat and Chew Cafe. Details at hightowerlowdown.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So it wasn't enough for Lauren Boebert to say the Taliban's building back better, which is, I got to tell you, one of the most disgraceful things. I mean, it's even too low for her. And I don't think there's a bottom with how low that she'll go. I think that one's even lower. But interestingly enough, federal officials are looking at Boebert for apparently using campaign funds for personal use. And my first thought was, I don't know if they're using campaign funds for personal stuff. They're too busy doing insider trading stuff. That campaign stuff, that's just nothing. It's all that insider trading and lining their pockets elsewhere. But it'll be interesting to see if she was dumb enough to take campaign funds and use it for her own personal whatever. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on where we are, what's going on, and maybe how this whole situation in Afghanistan plays out over the next couple of months. I've asked our good friend Scott Dworkin to come talk with us. Scott is the co-founder of the Democratic Coalition, also the host of the fabulous Dworkin Report. Scott, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, how are you?
I'm not great, but I'm okay. I'm looking at what's going on in Afghanistan and going, look, like everybody else, it's tragic, it's horrible. But it had to be done. We had to get the hell out of there.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what we don't know yet, and that's what I keep reminding myself is we don't know. We do know that the troops were outnumbered, and we had to get them the heck out of there quickly. And it was set up in a way. I don't like playing the blame game, but Trump set it up in a way for it was meant to fail. And did things after his presidency he knew it was over to help set up this failure. Russia isn't helping us either in that respect. They're helping the Taliban. So I think things might be a little bit different right now. But like anything else, we need to wait for the smoke to clear and go from there. Taking, 2 images of videos that are absolutely terrible should not be everything. There's a lot of amazing things going on there. A lot of people risking their lives to get people out of there. And they're doing everything they can. And, the one thing is I'm very glad that it's the Biden administration, even though there's been some fumbles. I'm thankful that it's the Biden administration, not the Trump administration, getting people out of there, because I have a feeling that the lazy people who don't care about people, a lot more people would die in this instance, if any, do now. But I think that we're, as things are, there were mistakes made, there was bad intelligence, something happened along the way, and I think we'll get to the truth eventually. But it's not the biggest scandal of all time.
No.
You know what I mean?
No, and look, and I don't blame Joe Biden for this. Like you said, there was a couple of stumbles. Maybe we could have done something a little bit differently. I don't even so much blame Trump. I blame everybody. This has been 20 years of bad policy, bad decision making, no oversight, and a media structure that didn't bother paying attention to what was right in front of them, other than cheerleading and taking money from corporate America and these defense contractors who have basically bought the trough and shoved their nose in, as deep as they can get in it. So for me, that's the problem. Everything, all of them. I want investigations into how we got here. I don't give a tinker's damn about what happened the other day. And the Democrats, in my view, and you can disagree, we're gonna have an investigation into the end of this debacle. Why the hell aren't we figuring out how we got into this mess and hold those people accountable?
I think that's where it leads to. Right now people are just throwing around barbs and tweets, and it doesn't help. One of the reasons I've been careful about tweets is I recognize the reach that I have on Twitter and elsewhere online. And I don't want to point out, hey, help save these people here. Come to donate money to this, because it pinpoints people. So I've been doing a lot of work offline. And so I think people need to recognize these people are doing work constantly offline. And we're not seeing everything that's been done. And I know that the work is being done. On the broad basis of everything. Again, I don't know what kind of threats they got that day. I don't know exactly what they faced, and I don't think that's going to be revealed anytime soon. But I do know they got out of there quick, and so it wasn't. I don't know if there was groups moving in, if they were just fairly outnumbered by far. I mean, there's a lot of different things to be going on, and I've criticized different things before, and I do it too quickly in regards to military action. And you always got to wait. You got to wait a little bit and not jump on it. What I really don't like is I don't like seditionists and insurrectionists who don't care about our capital being attacked, and then they act like they care about the Afghanistan or people in Afghanistan or people that worked with us in Afghanistan. But they don't want them to come here. You know what I mean? Then they bring out their racist tendencies and all the hate and negativity. So they go back and forth, and they just want to scream and yell. And I just don't know who they're screaming and yelling for or at, because every American that I've spoken with is happy that we're getting out of there. They aren't really happy about how it goes about, but none of this was going to be pretty. None of it was going to be smooth. And it definitely wasn't going to be perfect, because again, it's a military action. So getting out of a place is not going to be clean. And keep in mind, there's other countries that want to have videos playing constantly that make us look terrible. And there are people saving lives. There's still Americans there that are saving lives right now. And we need to watch out for them. We need to not paint them as enemies, because they need our support right now. And so if you are criticizing them out there for no reason and you're not offering any ideas, then you need to sit down and be quiet, because this is not the time for that. It's going to be people's lives in danger.
Yeah, I mean, of all of this, and again, Lauren Boebert seems to rise to the top of the septic pond
Right.
when these things happen. Today, 1776, on her January 6th tweet, this latest tweet of the Taliban is building back better. I find that quite disgraceful.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a traitor would say. That's what a Taliban supporter would say. I believe she's both at this point, because it's the only thing I could, derive from everything she said. Obviously, as you had mentioned, federal officials have already investigated her, and they're questioning her about use of personal use of funds, campaign funds. And then also, it just came out that during the campaign, Boebert didn't disclose her husband's income from an energy firm, and I believe that it was almost $500,000. So it's a total of $478,000 last year. And so you have this when you see someone that's, stinks of corruption, you're going to find it. They're going to get caught. If you're a public official, you're not going to get away with it. And I think, all these stories starting to come out. She's criticizing everything in Afghanistan, but didn't she vote against visas for Afghans who helped us over there? She was one of the 16 Republicans. No Democrats voted against that. Where were they when they were trying to help them? Like, we've been trying to get people out for years, and so it's just, it sucks when you have people that are corrupt trying to make us look terrible and trying to criticize us just so that, I say every day, I'm like, I wonder what Republicans are going to be absolutely furious about tomorrow, because they haven't decided yet.
Because that's how they raise their money, Scott. They need that rage machine. They need people angry. They need grievance. They need people who are just, ready to foam at the mouth and, of course, dig into their wallet and send money, because that's what they do. That's what they're good at. They're not good at governing. They're good at this kind of rage reality TV nonsense. We should get them out of Congress and out of political office, but it's getting worse, Scott. I mean, I'm sure you've paid attention to these school board meetings across the country, where these zombie Karens, the illegitimate spawn of the Tea Party has now found the local school board meeting, and they're screaming and carrying on over their kids' masks. All of a sudden, people who couldn't do fifth grade math, they're now epidemiologists. They've now figured out virology. I mean, it's crazy. But this seems to me to be all part of a game plan to destabilize us, to keep us constantly in a rage mode and constantly in turmoil. Not good for a country, Scott.
No, we're investigating the groups that are behind this, because you can see that they have printed signs. You can see that they're organized. You can see that they have team leaders when they're out there. Obviously, it's probably branches of the Republican Party that are out there. I know that there's other right-wing kind of religious groups that have come out to those things. Luckily, we have people like Justin Canoe, who came out and spoke in Tennessee, just being like, my daughter, who's a child, she understands why she needs to wear a mask, because it helps other people. And it didn't take any other questions or any, like, it was just so simple for her. So if she can understand, I'm not sure why other people can't understand that they're acting like the children, and the children are the ones who understand. I mean, I was with an 11-year-old today, talking to him, and he was like, no, I don't mind wearing the mask or whatever. I just, I'd like to be around my friends and stuff, but I don't want to make anyone sick.
Yep.
And it's just like, there's humanity that's in this, and then there's people who are inhumane jerks that just want to get that money in so that they can run for higher office or give money to elect more QAnon crazies. There's no end to this. You're right. I think we have to look back at like how we got here, and one of those reasons is the feed that would be Fox News that led to OAN and the rise of Newsmax and other outlets, and now even more dangerously so, right-wing online punditry that is not monitored, that is not filtered really extensively. There are some groups that kind of analyze those videos, but they have these fake news networks, and like Steve Bannon is on a channel now that's online, and so you have these online channels are going to be our new place that we're going to have to our internet battle per se. But we've luckily been winning a lot of different battles in this online war now. For example, they took down 36 total accounts, but the 12 accounts the White House had pointed out that represented a lot of the COVID misinformation were all removed from Facebook. But like, why did it take them so long to remove posts about how the vaccine is ineffective and how chips can be injected? You see what I'm saying? Like, don't type that, Carol, because everyone can get in trouble on Twitter. But like, it definitely, it's just, it's tragic. And I think that I don't know what it takes for people to recognize. Maybe it's the mortuary trucks that are being driven into Texas right now. Death is usually the ultimate catalyst in regards to people recognizing, oh my God, like, that person drank the juice and that person's dead. I don't want to do that. Like, and some of them already are too far gone. But like, I think we're at a tipping point where it's just, they can't lie to themselves anymore because it's right in front of their faces.
Yeah, it's interesting because today Bloomberg reporter Steve Dennis pointed out that today the number of deaths topped 1,000 today. And we're again, the people who have done models, and I have a listener who sends me stuff all the time because he's been spot on. He's saying that it's only going to get worse from here. Hold on, because we're at the beginning of it, and not all of us are going to get the Regeneron, and not all of us are going to get the monoclonal antibody like Governor Abbott, who, interestingly enough, he got COVID. He had a vaccine, and just in case, they give him this monoclonal antibody just in case. Well, he was at an event with a whole bunch of old people at a Republican event. How many of those people got just in case? How many people did he infect there? And, at some point I go, I don't actually care. And I know it's bad for my soul to not.
No, it may drain your soul if you do too much. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have to take self-care. I think that a lot of people may recognize, oh, well, we're vaccinated. I mean, this can get much worse. It can get worse than ever before. And I think people need to recognize that, if this thing mutates again, this could mutate in a way that, from epidemiologists I've spoken with, this can mutate in a way that can be very lethal to people. This can, especially children. So we need to be really careful about what we do. If we don't squash this, it will manipulate itself. Not only that, but we're going to enter flu season pretty soon, and then imagine all the hospitals being full and people with heart attacks, stabbings, and shootings, and anything else that's an emergency of nature. They're filling up the hospital beds. So it's not just as simple as, oh, some people are going to get COVID, because there's going to be other types of COVID that already are being found across the world. That they're going to spread like a wildfire, and we won't be prepared for it. And so, some people are going to be too far gone at that point, because we'll be 4 shots in or 3 shots in at that point. And then other people will have to play catch up. But, I'm not sure if it would be at that point right. But we still have children who are unvaccinated, millions of children who are unvaccinated in this country. And if you care about children, you have to get vaccinated. If you hate children and you want them to get sick and die, then you don't get vaccinated. It's very simple. There's right and wrong here, Rick. And so there's an information diet of there's only so much you can take. Of the negative news of these people who are just willing to walk off a cliff. It's suicidal, and it really is mentally deranged. You have to look at it as these are people who are very, very sick already in the head, and they've been infected by the Fox virus.
And that's an excellent point. But here's the thing, and this is where I kind of want to go with this, because while we focus on the insane, while we focus on these crazy people who as I said, the illegitimate spawn of the Tea Party, these zombie Karens who show up to these school board meetings, and all these people who are just rabid all the time. There are people out there trying to do the right thing. There are the people in our hospitals who are taking care of these people and being mocked for it by the people that they're actually taking care of. I'd like that we spent time talking about the good things, so that maybe it does cleanse the soul a little bit to go, you know what? It's not all bad.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, don't harass medical people, people in the medical profession right now. Don't stand in their way. Don't try to block entrances at hospitals. But I mean, I have people that have been on the front lines every single day, 16, 18-hour days. One of my friends was pregnant at the beginning of COVID, and now she's had her baby, and she's got another kid as well, and she works at NYU. And it's just, it's crazy to me that doctors like her are able to press on and just move forward. I mean, nurses saved my life, and I know some nurses that just are still given everything that's going on right now, given the negligence by the politicians, given the negligence by immature adults that are infected with this kind of fox virus, they still believe in humanity and they believe in saving you. And guess what? They don't ask when they have you on a gurney or when you're sitting in the hospital bed. Is they don't ask, have you been watching Fox News? Have you been doing? Because they don't care about that. They just care about you as a human. And that's the thing that people don't seem to get, is they think that me, who's one of the biggest pusher of vaccines in the world, like I understand that, but it's not some kind of game. It's not for Joe Biden. It's not for Democrats. It is for humanity. I want you to get vaccinated because I don't want you to get sick and die, whether you wear a red hat or not. And sometimes, it's good to just take a break from all the news and all the garbage going on in the world, and maybe even seek out some kind of positive news in the world. Because given even with COVID, with Afghanistan, with whatever, there are positive news stories that you can see, and you got to have that hope. You got to have that light. You can't just have the negativity. And that, I mean, I'm one of the purveyors of the negativity because I got to present the truth. But I really want to, I hope that we can change that and at least mix it up. But yeah, you can't just focus on the negative. There are some beautiful things going on. There are people saving lives that that should not be able to work at this point because they've been so taxed and so beaten at this point. It's amazing to see what some human beings can do. It's proof that some heroes, they wear lab coats. Some heroes, they wear scrubs. And instead of capes. And so I'm inspired by that, and that helps me keep going because I don't work in a hospital, And so if you don't work in a hospital, then you're probably in a better place than those folks are at the moment.
Yeah, as you were talking, I remember a doctor that I had here on the program a while ago, Jewish doctor, African-American nurse, and an Asian anesthesiologist. And it sounds like a bad racist joke, but they were, he wrote a long tweet on a guy came in his 50s with Nazi tattoos and, swastikas all over, tattooed all over his body, begging them to help him. And they did. And, that to me is, I told the guy, I said, I don't know how you did it. I don't know that I would hope I would, but I don't know how you did it.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the Kremlin Annex, which is the thing that we set up, Adam Parkhomenko and others set up outside the White House to after the treason summit, the protests every night. And there was a time where a dude wearing a red hat fell on the ground, and I don't know, naturally went down, and I was like, oh, dude, and I helped him up. And I'm like, I'm not the best friend of anyone who wears a red hat by far, but we're human beings, and I think this is not a game. This is real life. People are dying. People are gonna die. More people are gonna die. The only answer is vaccination. There is no other answer. And if you're not taking part, then you're taking part in the murder, and that's what you're doing. You're killing people, and I think that's what stinks about it, is it's so serious. It's life or death. It's right or wrong. It's not opinionated. You can't say, I have this opinion about masks. No, you wear masks. That's the answer. There is no other answer. Anyone who differs from that should not have a platform anywhere in the world, ever, in any way. Same thing with vaccine disinformation. There's a time for you to question, I'm not sure about this vaccine, or this is not the time for that. Anyone who talks about doubting the vaccine or its efficacy should be banned from all social media, at least for now, if not forever. I believe forever. And this is the problem that we have. People need to be made examples of in regards to, there need to be consequences in regards to legal action and otherwise. I do know that there's a lot of families that have lost loved ones who directly attribute Fox News for their deaths of COVID. And one of them is a friend, Kristen Urquiza, who runs Marked by COVID. Her dad died of COVID, and he was like, I'll be fine. I'm gonna, like, I was watching Trump, I was watching Fox News, like I saw this stuff, like we're gonna be fine. I trust our president, and like this was repetitive. He was a great guy, like a great human being. She had mentioned that he would go. He's the guy that you call if you need something moved, and he doesn't even know you. He goes and he shows up. He gets other people to show up. He was that kind of guy, and he died of it. And so I know that there's going to be people who face legal consequences and financial consequences, especially at Fox News in lawsuits and other ways. But this is not a right. Like two opinions. This is right and wrong. This is good versus evil, and we need to recognize that. And we definitely, I think you're right about this. Is we need to maybe spotlight these positive things so that we can counteract it. Because maybe some of these folks don't have any hope because all they see is turmoil. All they're presented with is this negative stuff. And I bet some of them are starving for something positive, truly positive, that just is universally positive. And so sharing stories like that, when possible, might be a good idea for all of us.
Yeah, because we need it. I mean, at some point, there's got to be something that unites people. I used to believe there were things that were universally decent, like helping someone up, regardless of what hat they were wearing. But we're just in this time where every issue is polarized, and I keep coming back to this same frame. Every issue is polarized, and the people at the top keep making money. So as we're fighting each other, as we're on each side of this divide, and we're at each other's throats, the 1% keep robbing us blind and filling their coffers at the expense of us by not getting health care and education and this infrastructure bill that we desperately need. All this stuff.
Yeah, and there's champions like Peter Morley, who's pushed Healthcare Awareness Month, and I know Chairwoman Maloney has now presented a bill that will make August Healthcare Awareness Month. And so it's great advocates like that who are fighting for people and saving lives and keeping as positive as they possibly can. Peter Morley is one of the most positive human beings I've ever met.
Yep.
He's one of my best friends, a great human being, a hero and a champion. And so Healthcare Awareness Month has been something that he's championed for forever. And finally, they're passing something. And so there are examples of bright lights. And I try to feed off of these folks, especially when I have to go into the dark, when I have to go and investigate different people. Like, do you think that I wanted to sit there and watch hundreds of hours of Marjorie Taylor Greene, all of her videos that she's ever posted, every interview she's ever had of any kind? I didn't, but I also wanted to make sure that she was exposed for the fraud that she was and the traitor that she is. And so I think it really is important for us to though have those friendships and make sure that we lift people up who deserve to be lifted up instead of just fighting folks. And now I know, as a person who got angry this morning and tweets out ban Marge a couple of times and then it trends number 2 in the country, like there are some fights that we need to have peaceful fights in regards to online, that we need to confront people head on. But then there are times where we can lift champions and heroes up that are saving lives, like Peter Morley, like my doctor friend who is at NYU, like Dr. Ding, like Dr. Joseph Sakharin, like Dr. Rob Davidson, people who are on the front lines every single day fighting for people. And they're not choosing sides in regards to who is what. You have Dr. Sakharin, who's been shot before, a gunshot victim, and he works at Johns Hopkins Hospital. And he saves lives of people of every ethnicity, it doesn't matter to him. A human being is a human being, and he's going to help them no matter who they are. And how can you not stop and think that is true humanity? And I think we've lost it. We have lost that humanity. And that was part of the Trump virus, is he has taken that humanity away. He turned it into a wrestling match. It's all WWE. I mean, one of the commentators, a Republican on local NPR, I was debating with the other day, and they're talking about rah, 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 rah. And I just sat there, impeach Biden, blah, blah, like all this other garbage just for no reason. And I'm like, you know what? What I appreciate about what you just said about impeaching and removing Biden or whatever thing that's never going to happen. What I appreciate about that is the fact that you're finally acknowledging that he is the president of the United States. So there are positive things, and he even laughed about that because it was just like, I didn't realize what I was doing there. But I think that's what we have to have. There's got to be more kind of Jon Stewart's and Dave Grohl's, and I'm sorry that I'm giving men, but there's got to be more Joy Reids and Rachel Maddow's and Rick Smiths out there, and calling truth out at the same time while trying to bring a sense of entertainment and reality to people, I think is so refreshing. And that's why we need people like you and the Rick Smith Show at a constant, because we can't survive without people like you calling people out. And also bringing a spotlight on people like Peter Morley and the doctors that you've spoken with, because they need a voice.
Yeah, no, I mean, Peter's a great guy. And with this being Healthcare Awareness Month, we got to get him back on here really soon. But important stuff. And I'm glad this is where we're going to end this, because, it sounds like in this moment, we can always be down and angry. But there is hope. There is a way forward. And I appreciate you taking time and sharing in that hope with me.
No, and I just say, please get vaccinated. It's not political. It's personal. I've had friends die of it. I've had family members die of it. I don't want you to die of it, no matter who you are.
Good stuff, Scott.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the time. Our good friend Scott Dworkin, co-founder of the Democratic Coalition, host of the fabulous Dworkin Report. Make sure you check out his podcast where podcasts are found. Gonna take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
Waving the flag of freedom for people, not corporations. Rick Smith.
The earthquake could not have come at a worse time. Haiti is in the midst of a political crisis and is being threatened by a tropical storm which could bring heavy rains and mudslides to the already crippled nation.
Tropical depression Grace compounds disaster as Haiti reels from powerful earthquake. July 2021 was the hottest month ever recorded on planet Earth. Plus,
climate change science is telling us some really stark truths about the decline of water here in the western United States.
Federal government declares water shortage on the Colorado River for the first time ever.
All of those declarations and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
They passed a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. To put that into perspective, if you took 1.2 trillion $1 bills and laid them end to end, they'd make better roads than what we're driving on right now, which is why we need the bill.
This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, as if things weren't horrific enough in Haiti, now they're slammed by a tropical depression.
Indeed. On Saturday, a 7.2 magnitude earthquake hit western Haiti, still not fully recovered from the devastating 2010 earthquake, also struggling with the pandemic, gang violence, and political chaos after its president was assassinated last month. Now a tropical storm is plunging the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere even further into crisis. As we go to air, more than 1,400 people are confirmed dead, thousands more injured, tens of thousands rendered homeless and in immediate need of shelter, food, clean water, and medical care. The region is in desperate need of assistance, but compounding the devastation is Tropical Depression Grace. The storm's track is almost right over the epicenter of the earthquake and is forecast to dump as much as 15 inches of rain in some areas. This is a harrowing example of what emergency management experts call a compound disaster. Natural disasters hitting in quick succession, pushing government response and infrastructure resilience to the breaking point.
And that's something that you have warned about for years, having more than one disaster at a time. And Haiti has, well, now at least more than one disaster.
Meanwhile, July 2021 was Earth's hottest month ever recorded globally since record-keeping began in the 1880s. That's according to NOAA, breaking the previous record set just last year. July saw 2 flood disasters in China and Germany that each cost more than $25 billion in damages. The month also saw the hottest reliably recorded temperature for the planet, an astonishing 130 degrees Fahrenheit at Death Valley, California. It is not a good sign that this new all-time hottest month record is occurring when there is no El Nino weather pattern in the Pacific to blame for goosing global temperatures.
So everything could be worse this month had there been an El Nino this year.
Exactly.
Oh, brother.
Japan is the latest country to see record-setting torrential rains. Parts of western Japan have set new all-time highest rainfall records. Some areas deluged with 3 months' worth of rain in 24 hours. One prefecture saw more than 3.5 feet of rain in 3 days. Those have generated extreme floods and landslides that have collapsed buildings and swept away homes. Here in the U.S., the Biden administration on Monday formally declared a water shortage on the Colorado River for the first time in U.S. history amid a decades-long mega drought that experts say is a sign of what is to come with man-made climate change. The river's main reservoirs have dropped to new historic lows. Lake Mead near Las Vegas is at 35% capacity, Lake Powell at 32%. Both are still falling, triggering the first ever mandatory water cuts in the Southwest. Starting next year, Arizona will lose almost 20% of its river allocation.
Wow.
Nevada will lose about 7%. In an interview with KUNM, John Fleck, director of the Water Resources Program at the University of New Mexico, warns that further cuts are likely, and communities should begin preparing now for even worse.
They won't.
Coping with less water is a permanent phenomenon. We cannot expect wet times to return.
So this is a problem for drinking water, for farming, and how about for power?
There are concerns about that as well from the hydroelectric plants at Lake Mead and the Hoover Dam.
Which is at an all-time low.
Yes. In Northern California, new evacuations have been ordered as the relentless Dixie Fire shows no signs of slowing down more than a month after it ignited near a Pacific Gas and Electric power station. Fire experts warn that it now appears that giant infernos that burn for months on end are the new norm for California. Finally, a bit of good news. The Biden administration is moving to restore even more of the Trump administration's dismantling of efficiency standards for appliances, which, by the way, most manufacturers did not support and did not request. For light bulbs, dishwashers, clothes washers, and shower heads, which save consumers both money and water, particularly crucial amid the Western drought.
For much more on all of those stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as we talked about yesterday, this report that came out on Monday that basically said, we knew this was a bad idea from the start. It was doomed. Everything to do with our hubris, everything to do with not understanding the culture, a whole bunch of things. And I think Monday, an interesting day for them to come out with what we need to learn from the last 20 years, especially what happened yesterday. I'm here to share some thoughts on, what did go wrong? What should we learn from this? And maybe what we should do in the future. That's why I've asked Larry Korb to come talk with us. Larry is a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress. He was also an assistant secretary of defense back in the early 80s, somebody that I defer to on military issues. Larry, thanks for taking time for us.
My pleasure.
So have you seen this report that, basically, it's 124 pages of, we should have known this was going to happen. We knew all along this was doomed from the start. Have you seen this?
Yes, I have.
And do you agree that we should have known this from the start?
Well, I agree that you should have taken that into account when you made your decision to leave. In other words, I spent 24 years in the Navy, and we always basically plan for the worst, hope for the best. So given what was the situation there, you should have assumed that it could go downhill very, very rapidly and plan for that. You also, if you were going to evacuate and leave, I mean, I know why President Biden picked the, the September 11th deadline, because that's when the attacks came. But in terms of from a military point of view, you should have waited till December because they don't do much fighting in the cold weather. It's, this is the height of the fighting season. So if you were gone then, they'd have a little bit of time, to adjust to it. And you should have said, okay, if it does go downhill rapidly or much worse, how are we going to deal with it? And then finally, you can't just focus on the Americans. You got to get all the Afghan people who helped us, translators, and helped us deal with the Taliban military threat. You got to get them out too.
Right.
And again, you hadn't planned for that. You could have started taking them out even before you announced that you were going to leave on a certain date.
Yeah, but the argument then to that is, Joe Biden did try and extend it, because wasn't May 1st the original exit date? Wasn't this what the previous administration had negotiated, that we were going to be out by then, and Biden kind of held it off a little longer?
Well, with the agreement we made with the Taliban, we'd be out in a year and a half after we made the agreement with them. And their part of the deal was they were supposed to stop fighting us, which they did. They were supposed to also negotiate with the Afghan government, which they didn't. And so you really didn't have to, keep that date. It was, Trump actually wanted to, but his military and his civilian leadership talked him out of it. So he wouldn't have, even if he had been reelected, it would have been very hard to get out by May 1st. But you did, again, you did want to leave because the Taliban had kept their part of the bargain. They weren't killing Americans. We haven't had a casualty, a death there in over a year and a half. And the other thing is, you knew you had to leave sometime, and if not now, when? Right. So, I mean, I think that, you didn't have to do it. I mean, Biden picked September 11th for, to say, symbolic reasons rather than security reasons.
Now, but here's the thing. We go back to what we talked about, during the break. Who could have predicted that the Afghan army, that we've spent 20 years training, we've spent 20 years arming with the best technology they can get, we've given them an Air Force, we've done all this stuff. Who would have thought that in such a short period of time that they wouldn't have stood up for themselves?
Well, again, you would have hoped that they would. The chances didn't seem great that they would, disassemble so quickly. But when you undertake an operation like this, you've got to plan for the worst. You have to say, well, it's not likely to happen, but what will we do if it does? Yeah. And I think that was the failure. General Milley today in his press conference said nobody predicted they'd fall in 11 days. Okay. But the fact of the matter is it was possible, and I'm surprised from a military point of view they didn't say, well, what will we do if in fact it does?
Exactly. I mean, when I heard him say that, I'm going, well, nobody? Don't you have a lot of really smart people who are supposed to be gaming out every possible scenario? And isn't one of those a total collapse? Because, in some of the people that I've talked to, they're saying we should have known because the country horribly corrupt. The Taliban has been paying people for a long time. There's a long history of threatening families. That there's a lot here that we didn't really take into account. So it's not really surprising that it fell like this.
Well, again, you can understand why the military, which has spent so much time and blood and energy, didn't think that would happen. But you go back and you look at these generals, each of them tell us, oh, we're winning, it's going good, just hang on a little longer. They've all been wrong. And so I think that you have to take that into account. It's just like, when I was in Vietnam and Westmoreland was, talking about how great things were going, we looked and said, who's he talking about? Doesn't he know, what's what's happening? So, again, yes, I can understand why they didn't think it would, but you got to, if you're the administration, you got to say, okay, fine, I hope you're right, but let's plan in case you're not right.
Right. And that's the thing that gets me is, I had my good friend Rich Ojeda on the program the other day, and I said, look, what's your thoughts? And he goes, we never lost a battle in Afghanistan, but we lost the war. Because there were no clear objectives. They kept constantly moving the goalposts, no exit strategy, all of these things that set us up from the beginning. So for me, the lesson to be learned in all of this is maybe we should have a clear declaration of war, which we didn't have in this case, and a clear agenda and a clear path forward. Just seems kind of logical. Now, look, I'm not a military person. I don't know anything. I know nothing, but it seems logical.
Well, again, you can go back and you say, why did it fail? People forget that we drove the Taliban out of Afghanistan. And then we decided to undertake nation building, create a unified nation in the graveyard of the empires. And then we compounded it because we started on that, then we diverted our attention to Iraq. And so that allowed the Taliban to come back. I was in New York on 9/11, and after the attacks, I was working at the Council on Foreign Relations. We got a call from the Iranian ambassador to the UN because, we don't have diplomatic relations. And he said, tell your government that we hate the Taliban and we'll help you get rid of them. They were the first country to condemn the attacks of 9/11. They did. And what happened in early 2002, we put them on the axis of evil. The first time the ambassador invited me for dinner, the next time there was no dinner or anything like that. So again, you go back and you look at those mistakes. Obama tried to rescue it. He put more troops in, but he put a date for them to get out. Well, the Taliban said, okay, we'll wait.
After all, they live there.
Yeah. So again, I think that there's been an awful lot of, of mistakes. We've done some good there. The lives of the people, are better off. And maybe the Taliban are not going to act as horribly as they used to. They seem to be giving some indications. When I went to Afghanistan in 2011 as part of an international mission to try and get negotiations going, I asked the Taliban guys, well, how will you treat women if you come back in? He said, don't worry, we won't be any worse than your allies, the Saudis.
That doesn't give me great hope.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and I don't expect them to do anything right away. I expect them to be kind of calm for a little while. But eventually I do expect them to go back to their old ways. And, the fear that some of my conservative friends who want to go back, I mean, there are actually people that I've met who say we shouldn't be leaving. We should be sending more people. We should be doubling and tripling and quadrupling down because we're going to win. And I still don't know what grand prize we're going to win. But, there's this thought that we can change that. And, I look at this report again, this American exceptionalism idea that we can do anything. We can change a nation that's been this way for thousands of years somehow because we're so exceptional that we can change it, and we can't, Larry. I don't believe we can change it.
Well, we have two objectives. One, we hope that the Taliban treat the people reasonably. The other is that it doesn't become a haven for Al-Qaeda or ISIS, because that's the real threat to us. Again, what we need to be doing, and we should have done this ahead of time, work with the countries in the region, because either Russia, China, India, or it wants them to become a haven for, Al-Qaeda. I mean, the Chinese say, well, if they become a haven for Al-Qaeda and ISIS, they're going to go over and support the Uyghurs, so we're, keeping in concentration camps. The Iranians don't want to see a whole bunch of people coming into their, country either. The Indians are concerned about what would happen in Kashmir. So those countries, we should have been working with them, say, okay, guys, we're going to leave. Here's the deal. Let's, get together and have you tell your Taliban friends if they come back in, this is how they should act.
Right. But is this a moment for us to maybe step away from this entirely and go, you know what? Your backyard, your problem. This is your backyard. You deal with your problems.
Well, they have more media concerns than we do because ISIS and Al Qaeda are not going to just go after Americans. They attack a lot of countries. Our main goal is to keep them from attacking us or our allies because, again, we are a big target because we're kind of the number one country in the world, and so they might want to be more willing to attack us.
So, politically back here, and I know you're not a political person, but, I'm looking at what the fallout is and the attacks on Biden. This is all Biden's fault. He did all this. And without, thinking about this is a 20-year mistake in my view. There's a lot of blame to go around at every level for every decision. But for right now, the arrows are being slung at Biden. And it's my view that in the long term, I think things are going to turn around in his favor, and he's going to be the guy who got us out of there because there have been a lot of people saying, hey, we got to get out. He was finally the guy who said, we're getting out.
Yeah, I agree that, again, if it doesn't become a haven for Al Qaeda, we don't have any terrorist attacks, he'll be overcome. But the problem you have is people look at a man and hopefully soon a woman in the Oval Office, and they say, can they really do things well and all this? And this was just horribly handled, even though we agree we should get out. Are you guys competent? I mean, I've talked to a lot of Biden supporters who feel that his national security team is not up to the job, not the generals, but, I mean, how much experience, is Jake Sullivan, Henry Kissinger? Or is, Tony Blinken, George Shultz? You see what I mean? In terms of the people that they have who are the key players on the national security team.
No, it's an excellent point. But again, Biden is supposed to be the guy who has all of the foreign policy chops. He's got 40 years plus experience here. This is what we're hoping on. That his long experience is going to be the one that navigates us through this. And like I said, I'm hopeful that down the road we look back at this and say it was tragic what happened over the last couple of days, but it was still the right decision to get out.
Yeah, the other thing he did, he stayed on vacation. Good gosh. Yeah. I mean, given the fact he's been a politician since 1972, no, all of the
optics.
Opponents are using that against him. Yeah, he went on, and then after he gave the speech, he went back again. I mean, that was just not, the way to do it.
No, I'm right there with you. But one of the other lessons that I think need to be learned is understand we were at war for 20 years, and the vast majority of people in this country felt nothing. Maybe we saw a news report. Maybe we were asked to put a yellow ribbon on the back of our car that say we support the troops. Maybe we have to stand for a minute longer after the national anthem at the ball game. But the reality is none of us really sacrificed for this war. So isn't part of the lesson have to be that if we're going to get involved in another long conflict that are going to send our young men and women over to die in some foreign place, that at least we should struggle a little bit, a little suffer, a little sacrifice? I mean, I go back and I was looking at the tax rates. Truman raised the top marginal tax rate to 92% to pay for Korea. Johnson raised the taxes up to 77% to pay for Vietnam. George Bush cut taxes on the very wealthy and said go shopping. I'm sorry, going shopping is not sacrifice for the people in this country.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly. We should have a war tax because not only the cost of those brave men and women who, fought there and volunteered to go, you have $2 trillion in veterans care that you're going to have to deal with because in Vietnam, for every, 4 people wounded, 1 died. Now for every 26 wounded, only 1 passes. So you're going to have an awful lot of, people there. I don't know, again, if you realize this, but when we were in Iraq and Afghanistan and those wars were not going well, the Navy and the Marines gave 40,000 moral waivers in order to get people to volunteer. And I argued then that we should have, gone back to a draft. I think, that would have gotten people to ask the questions, because even if you don't get drafted, you might, and the families are going to say, wait a second here, my son and under the law, my daughter, could have to go.
Yep. No, and this is one of those things I was saying back then. That this is way too easy. It's way too easy to send other people's kids, usually poor people's kids and poor working class kids, into these battles. You never see the top hogs sending their kids. It's always the poor and the working class that fight these battles. And for me, that I'm hoping is the lesson that eventually gets learned out of this. Although I got to tell you, our media structure is keeping it right between the binary choice of blaming Trump and blaming Biden. And I don't really blame either of them. I blame everybody from the start. Just my thought. But Larry, I appreciate your thoughts, your time. Always great talking with you, my friend.
Okay, anytime. Take care. Be well.
Thanks so much, Larry Koerb, senior fellow there at the Center for American Progress. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break right here. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
I'm David Philman, Executive Director of AFSCME Council 13. AFSCME members enforce regulations, keep prisoners behind bars, take care of patients, protect the environment, and more. Chances are you may never see that AFSCME member working in a sewage plant, diving underwater to repair a bridge, inspecting an elevator, or answering a 911 call. But aren't you glad they do? For more information, visit AFSCME13.org.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, I'm looking at some of the news that's going on. For instance, Texas, one of the school districts there, has decided, in order to get around Governor Abbott, who has COVID, to get around his anti-mask ban, they are now making it part of their dress code, which evidently will get around the law. Which, be creative. Be creative to protect your students. Good on you. Also, Biden is going to require nursing homes to mandate staff be vaccinated, or going to lose federal funding. At the end of the day, nobody's going to make you do it. You're just going to, take the money out of your pocket. And also, I look at this story coming out of Kansas, where evidently the system is so overwhelmed that they are literally putting people on trains, planes, and automobiles, helicopters, and everything that they can to take them miles away to get some treatment. In fact, far-flung states that aren't having the outbreaks that they're having, and their system collapsing. Maybe that's the future. I don't know. Medical tourism now, COVID tourism. Get to see bright and wonderful hospitals in a different state. Get to die somewhere else. Scott was right. It's get vaccinated. It seems like a simple thing. Protect yourself. It seems like something that we would have learned as kids. Protect yourself. But we just don't seem to get it. Anyway, I'm hopeful. I'm still somewhat hopeful. We're taking a long weekend here the next couple of days, a couple of planned personal days to just kind of rejuvenate, re-energize, all of that. Everyone needs a little vacation every now and again, and we're going to take a little one right here. So we're going to play some of our best interviews over the next couple of days. You're not going to want to miss that. If you've missed any of today's program, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you go to get the podcast. The Rick Smith Show app on the smartphone. Take the program on the go wherever you go. And as always, email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.